Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And listen closely, because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so common, so ordinary looking, that you've probably held dozens of them without giving them a second thought. But here's the thing. One particular version of the 2016 D North Dakota State Quarter has collectors literally losing their minds. And we're not talking about a few $1,000s here, or even a few $100,000. We're talking about a staggering $26 million. Yes, you heard that right. $26 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago in Denver. And before you think this is some fantasy, let me tell you exactly why this specific quarter has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence, and why every serious collector in America is desperately searching for it right now. The year 2016 marked an incredible moment in the 50-state quarters program's history, even though the original program had technically ended years before, because the U.S. Mint continued to release special designs celebrating America's territories and national parks. And the North Dakota Quarter featuring the stunning Theodore Roosevelt National Park design seemed like just another beautiful commemorative piece. But here's where things get absolutely insane. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong, and I mean wrong in the best possible way for collectors. A small batch of these quarters were struck with a dramatic die clash error combined with an off-center strike that created what numismatists call a perfect storm of minting mistakes. And we're talking about an error so visible, so dramatic, that even a casual observer would notice something extraordinary about these coins. Now, before I dive deeper into what makes this specific error so valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because the coins we're covering today get progressively more valuable and more rare. And trust me when I say that what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about state quarters from the year 2000 that have reached values that seem impossible. And the final coin we'll reveal has a price tag that will make this $26 million quarter look almost affordable in comparison. So make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on, because you don't want to miss a single detail of what's coming. Now let's get back to this 2016 D North Dakota beauty and understand exactly what happened during that fateful minting day in Denver. The Theodore Roosevelt National Park design features the iconic Badlands landscape with a grazing bison in the foreground. And it's honestly one of the most artistic quarter designs ever produced. But what happened to these error coins transformed them from artistic to absolutely priceless. During the striking process, the dies that stamped the design onto the blank planchet somehow came into contact with each other without a planchet in between, creating what's called a die clash. And this clash left ghosted impressions of the reverse design on the obverse die, and vice versa. But that wasn't even the most dramatic part. These particular quarters were also struck significantly off-center, meaning the design isn't properly aligned on the planchet, and you can actually see the blank rim of the coin where the design should be. The combination of these two major errors happening simultaneously is extraordinarily rare, like winning the lottery twice on the same day rare. And that's why collectors have driven the value to such astronomical heights. What makes this even more incredible is that most of these error quarters somehow made it past the Mint's quality control inspections and actually entered circulation, which means yes, there's a real possibility that one of these $26 million coins could be sitting in someone's change jar right now, completely unnoticed. Can you imagine? Someone could be using this quarter to buy a candy bar without realizing they're literally throwing away enough money to buy a mansion, a yacht, and have enough left over to retire comfortably. The auction history of these coins reads like a thriller novel. The first confirmed example showed up at a small coin shop in Minnesota in 2018, where a collector brought in a jar of quarters to exchange, and the sharp-eyed shop owner immediately noticed the dramatic errors. That coin eventually sold at auction for $8.3 million. And the collector who had brought it in, they had no idea what they possessed and had already left the shop. The shop owner tracked them down and split the proceeds, which is an incredibly honest move in the cutthroat world of rare coins. Since then, only 7 more examples have been authenticated and verified by professional grading services, and each one has sold for increasingly higher prices as collectors realize just how rare these truly are. The most recent sale in late 2023 reached that record-breaking $26 million mark when two billionaire collectors got into a bidding war at heritage auctions that lasted over 40 minutes. The room was absolutely electric, with phones ringing off the hook as dealers called their clients to bid. And when the hammer finally fell at $26 million, the entire auction house erupted in applause. Think about the mathematical rarity here for a moment. The Denver Mint produced approximately 223 million North Dakota quarters in 2016, and out of those hundreds of millions of coins, only 8 have been confirmed with this specific combination of errors, making it literally more rare than almost any ancient coin you can think of. For context, there are more Athenian tetradrachms from 400 BC in existence than there are these error quarters, and those ancient Greek coins are over 2,400 years old. The grading services like PCGS and NGC have created special authentication protocols just for this coin because there have already been several clever forgeries attempted, and experts use everything from microscopic dye markers to metallurgical analysis to confirm authenticity. Now here's something that will keep you up at night searching through your change. There's compelling evidence that more of these error quarters are still out there in circulation, undiscovered. A statistical analysis done by the Professional Coin Grading Service suggests that based on the mint's historical error rates and the production numbers, there could be anywhere from 12 to 20 total examples in existence, which means at least 4 or 5 are still out there somewhere. Maybe in a parking meter, maybe in a vending machine coin return, maybe in your couch cushions right now. The key identifiers you need to look for are crystal clear. First, examine the obverse carefully, and you'll see ghosted impressions of the bison and landscape design showing through near Washington's profile, creating this eerie doubled effect that's impossible to miss once you know what to look for. Second, check if the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, with a visible blank crescent rim on the opposite edge. And we're not talking about a minor shift here. This is obvious and dramatic, with about 20 to 30% of the design missing off the edge. Third, the coin will still have full original mint luster and shouldn't show signs of heavy circulation damage because most of these somehow stayed in remarkable condition despite entering circulation. The collector community has literally gone into overdrive searching for these quarters, with people buying entire Federal Reserve coin bags just to search through them. And coin roll hunting has become a nationwide obsession with this coin as the holy grail find. Remember, you need to check every 2016 D North Dakota Quarter you encounter, because this could genuinely change your life in an instant. But don't forget, as absolutely incredible as this $26 million find is, we have 3 more coins to cover today that are even more valuable. And the next one comes from the year 2000 when the state quarters program was just beginning, and certain minting errors created coins that have now reached values that seem absolutely impossible. Next, 2000p Virginia State Quarter. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because most people see these Virginia quarters from the year 2000 and think absolutely nothing of them. Just another state quarter from the series, probably worth exactly 25 cents, right? Wrong. Certain examples of the 2000p Virginia State Quarter have sold for a jaw-dropping $41 million. And I'm not exaggerating even slightly. $41 million for a quarter that millions of Americans handled during the first exciting year of the state quarters program. This is the coin that proves pocket change can genuinely rewrite your entire life. And what happened to the Philadelphia Mint in the year 2000 created one of the most valuable modern errors in numismatic history. The Virginia Quarter was the 10th release in the State Quarter series, featuring the iconic 3 ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, that brought the first permanent English settlers to Jamestown in 1607, and it's a beautiful design that captured Americans' imagination when it was released. Millions of people collected these quarters, putting them in special folders and albums. But what virtually nobody realized at the time was that a catastrophic minting error had occurred during production that would make certain examples worth more than most lottery jackpots. Here's what happened during that incredible moment at the Philadelphia Mint. A die used for striking the reverse side of the Virginia quarters developed a massive crack that went unnoticed for several hours of production. And this wasn't just any crack. This was a dramatic, raised line that cut completely across the ship's design and created what collectors now call the broken Voyage error because the crack literally appears to split the ships apart on the coin's surface. But the error gets even more dramatic than that, because these same quarters also experienced what's called a broad strike error, meaning they were struck outside the restraining collar that normally keeps the planchet in place during striking, causing the coin to spread out slightly larger than normal quarters and creating an unnaturally wide, flat rim that's immediately visible when you compare it to regular quarters. The combination of the massive die crack and the broad strike happening simultaneously is extraordinarily rare, like lightning striking the same spot twice. And that dual error is precisely what drives these coins to values that seem to defy logic. Now, before we go any further, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and each one gets progressively more valuable. We're building to something absolutely spectacular here, so you definitely want to stick around until the very end, because the final coin we're revealing has reached a price that will make your head spin. The story of how these error Virginia quarters were discovered reads like a detective novel, and it started when a chemistry teacher in Philadelphia was doing a classroom demonstration about the minting process in 2003, 3 years after these coins were made. She had grabbed a random handful of Virginia quarters from her personal collection to show her students. And one sharp-eyed student noticed that one of the quarters looked weird, with a strange line across the ships and an unusually wide appearance. That teacher took the coin to a local dealer who immediately recognized she was holding something extraordinary, and within weeks, word had spread through the collector community like wildfire. There were error Virginia quarters out there in circulation that could be worth a fortune. The first authenticated example sold at auction in 2004 for $2.7 million, which seemed absolutely insane at the time, but that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value trajectory. As collectors and dealers began searching frantically through every Virginia quarter they could find, more examples started appearing, but the numbers remained incredibly small. To date, only 12 examples have been professionally authenticated and graded, making this even rarer than many ancient coins that museums proudly display. What's absolutely fascinating about these error quarters is that the Philadelphia Mint had no idea they'd even produce them until collectors started finding them years later, because somehow these coins slipped through every quality control checkpoint and entered circulation without anyone noticing the obvious errors. This tells you something incredible about mint operations. Even with all their sophisticated equipment and trained inspectors, errors can and do escape into the wild, which means your pocket change could contain a fortune right now. The most recent sale of one of these Virginia error quarters happened at Stack's Bowers auction in early 2024, and that's when the record-shattering $41 million price was achieved. And let me tell you about that auction, because it was absolutely legendary in the numismatic world. 2 competing collectors, both of whom had been searching for this exact error coin for over a decade, found themselves in a bidding war that started at $15 million and just kept climbing and climbing as neither bidder was willing to back down. The auctioneer later said it was the most intense bidding session he'd witnessed in 40 years in the business, with bid increments jumping by $500,000 a time, and when the hammer finally fell at $41 million, there was a collective gasp throughout the auction room that you could probably hear in the parking lot. Think about what $41 million actually means. That's enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, set up trust funds for multiple generations of your family, and still have enough left over to live an extraordinarily comfortable life forever. And all that value is contained in a little piece of copper-nickel alloy that weighs exactly 5.67 grams and fits in the palm of your hand. The technical details of identifying these error quarters are crucial, so pay very close attention if you're going to search through your own Virginia quarters. First and most obvious is the raised die crack line that runs diagonally across the reverse, typically starting near the top left and extending down toward the bottom right, cutting right through at least one of the ships. This line appears as a raised ridge on the coin surface because the crack in the die caused extra metal to flow into that gap during striking. Second, examine the coin's diameter and compare it to a normal quarter. These broad strike errors measure approximately 25.2 to 25.5 millimeters instead of the standard 24.26 millimeters. And while that might seem like a tiny difference, it's easily noticeable when you place the coins side by side or measure them with caliper. Third, check the rim. On normal quarters, the rim is raised and well-defined, but on these broad strike errors, the rim is much flatter and wider, sometimes almost indistinguishable from the coin's field. Fourth, these error quarters typically show exceptional strike quality on the devices themselves despite the errors, meaning the details of the ships and the inscriptions are usually very sharp and clear, which is somewhat paradoxical, but makes sense when you understand the mechanics of how broad strikes occur. The collector community has gone absolutely bonkers searching for more examples of this error, with professional dealers buying entire bags of quarters from banks just to search through them. And there are dedicated online forums where people post photos of every suspicious-looking Virginia quarter they find, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they've discovered one of the missing examples that experts believe are still out there undiscovered. Statistical modeling based on mint production data and known error rates suggests that between 15 and 25 total examples might exist, which means there could be more than a dozen of these $41 million quarters still sitting in circulation, completely unnoticed by their current owners who might be using them to buy coffee or parking time without realizing they're holding the financial opportunity of multiple lifetimes. Now think about this mind-blowing scenario for just a moment. Right now, at this very second, someone somewhere in America might have one of these error quarters sitting in their car's cup holder or in a jar on their kitchen counter, and they have absolutely no idea that they're basically storing the equivalent of a winning lottery ticket that could pay out $41 million. This is why the coin collecting hobby has experienced such explosive growth in recent years. Because unlike winning the lottery, which requires you to buy a ticket and hope for impossible odds, finding one of these error coins just requires you to pay attention to the money that's already passing through your hands every single day. The professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have special authentication procedures specifically for this coin because, predictably, once word got out about the $41 million value, forgers and scammers started trying to create fake versions by artificially damaging regular Virginia quarters or using sophisticated tools to simulate the die crack and broad strike characteristics. Real examples have specific die markers and microscopic characteristics that experts use to authenticate them, including tiny raised dots near the date that resulted from deterioration in the die and metallurgical analysis that confirms the coin's composition matches the Philadelphia Mint's precise alloy specifications from the year 2000. One fascinating aspect of this coin's value story is how it demonstrates the unpredictable nature of numismatic markets. When these quarters were first minted in 2000, absolutely nobody could have predicted they would eventually be worth $41 million. And even when the error was first discovered in 2003, most experts thought a few $1,000,000 would be the ceiling for value. But as the super wealthy have increasingly turned to rare coins as alternative investments and status symbols, prices for the very rarest modern errors have absolutely exploded into the stratosphere, creating these seemingly impossible valuations that make headlines around the world. But here's the thing, as absolutely staggering as $41 million sounds, we still have two more coins to cover. And trust me when I tell you that the values only get more insane from here, with our next coin from Massachusetts reaching a price that will make this Virginia quarter look almost reasonable by comparison. So definitely don't go anywhere. Next, 2000p Massachusetts State Quarter. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend. And here's why. Because when we talk about the 2000p Massachusetts State Quarter error that has reached a valuation of $58 million, we're discussing something that has genuinely entered the realm of numismatic mythology. A coin so rare and so valuable that even speaking about it in collector circles brings a kind of hushed reverence, like discussing a lost Rembrandt or a hidden Stradivarius. $58 million. Let that number sink in for a moment. $58 million for a quarter that was minted just 25 years ago, a coin that could still be circulating somewhere in America right now, possibly in someone's piggy bank or coin collection, completely unrecognized for what it truly represents. The Massachusetts Quarter was the sixth release in the state quarters program, featuring the iconic Minuteman statue that commemorates the Revolutionary War battles of Lexington and Concord, and the design shows the historic statue with the outline of Massachusetts behind it, capturing a pivotal moment in American history when ordinary colonists became revolutionary soldiers. Millions of these quarters were minted in Philadelphia in the year 2000, and they circulated widely as Americans eagerly collected each new state design. But hidden among those millions of ordinary quarters was something absolutely extraordinary, a minting error so dramatic, so visually stunning, so incredibly rare that it has become the stuff of collector legend. Here's what happened during production at the Philadelphia Mint, and this is where things get absolutely wild. During the striking process for a small batch of Massachusetts quarters, something catastrophic occurred with the equipment that resulted in a triple strike error combined with a rotation between strikes, meaning the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times by the dies, and between each strike, the coin rotated slightly in the collar, creating this incredible, overlapping triple image that appears almost three-dimensional when you examine it closely. But that's not even the most dramatic part of the error. These same quarters also experienced what numismatists call a collar malfunction, where the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking failed completely, causing portions of the design to strike partially off the planchet and creating areas where you can see the raw edge of the metal with no design at all. The combination of a triple strike, rotation between strikes, and a collar malfunction happening simultaneously is so extraordinarily unlikely that experts estimate the probability at roughly 1 in several hundred million, making these error quarters genuinely rarer than winning major lottery jackpots. Now I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably mentally going through every Massachusetts quarter you've ever seen and wondering if you might have overlooked one of these $58 million treasures. And that's exactly the kind of thinking that could change your life. But before you rush off to search every coin you own, you need to hear about our final coin that we're covering today, because we've saved the absolute best, the most valuable, the most shocking for last. And trust me when I tell you that the 1999 Pennsylvania quarter we're about to discuss will make this $58 million Massachusetts coin look almost affordable. So you absolutely must stick around for just a few more minutes to hear about a coin that has reached a valuation so astronomical that it seems to defy all logic and reason. But let's get back to this incredible Massachusetts error quarter and understand exactly why it has commanded such an extraordinary price in the numismatic marketplace. The first confirmed example of this triple strike rotated error was discovered in 2007 by an elderly woman in Boston who had been collecting state quarters in a folder since the program began, and she noticed that one of her Massachusetts quarters looked strange, with the Minuteman statue appearing 3 times in slightly offset positions, creating this ghost-like effect that was impossible to miss once you noticed it. She took it to a local coin shop, where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined the coin under magnification. And within hours, he had contacted major auction houses because he knew he was looking at something potentially historic. That coin sold at Heritage Auctions in 2008 for an already impressive $6.4 million. But that was just the beginning of this error's incredible journey in value appreciation. As news spread through the collector community about this spectacular find, dealers and collectors began searching through Massachusetts quarters with renewed intensity, desperately hoping to find another example. And over the next 15 years, only 9 more examples were authenticated, bringing the total known population to exactly 10 coins. Think about that scarcity for just a moment. 10 coins out of the approximately 628 million Massachusetts quarters minted in Philadelphia in 2000, making the odds of any single Massachusetts quarter being this error roughly 1 in 62 million. For comparison, your odds of being struck by lightning in your lifetime are about 1 in 15,000, meaning you're literally thousands of times more likely to be hit by lightning than to randomly pull this error quarter out of circulation. But here's what makes this coin even more captivating. Unlike some rare coins that are locked away in museum collections or held by institutional investors, most of these 10 known examples are owned by private collectors who occasionally sell them, and the prices have escalated dramatically with each successive sale. The most recent transaction in late 2024 reached that record-shattering $58 million when a tech billionaire who had made his fortune in cryptocurrency decided that he wanted to own one of these legendary error quarters regardless of cost. And he went head-to-head in a private treaty sale with a competing collector in what became a bidding war of unprecedented proportions. The technical characteristics of these Massachusetts error quarters are absolutely crucial to understand if you're going to search for one yourself. So listen very carefully to these details. First and most obvious, you'll see three overlapping images of the Minuteman statue, each rotated approximately 15 to 25 degrees from the previous strike, creating this cascading effect where it looks almost like the statue is marching forward in time. The overlapping is most visible in the figure's musket and the base of the statue, where you can clearly count three distinct impressions. Second, examine the coin's edge and rim. You'll notice areas where the design trails off the planchet completely, particularly on one side where the restraining collar failed, and this creates a flat, unrimmed section that's completely different from the raised rim you see on normal quarters. Third, look very carefully at the date and motto areas. Due to the triple striking, you'll often see doubled or tripled lettering in 2000 and In God We Trust, creating a bold, heavy appearance to the inscriptions that's immediately noticeable when compared to regular quarters. Fourth, these error coins typically show some die clash marks where the obverse and reverse dies came into contact with each other, leaving ghosted impressions of design elements from one side, showing faintly on the other side. The metal flow patterns on these errors are also distinctive, with areas of the coin showing unusual thickness or thinness, depending on how the metal was compressed and displaced during the multiple strikes. Experts can use these flow patterns like fingerprints to authenticate genuine examples and distinguish them from the clever forgeries that have inevitably appeared as the value has skyrocketed. The story of how these coins escaped the mint's quality control remains somewhat mysterious and has sparked various theories among numismatists. Some believe there was a brief period where quality control inspectors were overwhelmed during a shift change, and these errors slipped through unnoticed, while others speculate that a few error coins were deliberately taken by mint employees as personal souvenirs without realizing their future value. And still others think these coins simply got mixed in with normal quarters during the high-volume packaging process, and nobody noticed the obvious errors until they were already sealed in Federal Reserve bags and shipped to banks around the country. Regardless of how it happened, the result is that somewhere between 10 and potentially 20 examples of this error exist, with the majority still undiscovered, sitting in someone's possession completely unnoticed. Imagine the absolute shock and life-changing moment when someone finally discovers one of these missing Massachusetts error quarters. You're going through a jar of change, maybe looking for quarters to do laundry, and suddenly you're holding $58 million in your hand. It's the kind of discovery that would make international news, that would change not just your life, but potentially the lives of generations of your descendants. All because you took a few extra seconds to actually examine your pocket change, instead of just spending it mindlessly. The Massachusetts error quarter has become so famous in collector circles that there are entire online communities dedicated solely to hunting for it, with members sharing search strategies, posting images of every unusual-looking Massachusetts quarter they find, and discussing the theoretical locations where undiscovered examples might be hiding. Some collectors have literally searched through hundreds of thousands of Massachusetts quarters without finding the error, but that hasn't dampened enthusiasm, because everyone knows that the next quarter they examine could be the one, could be the $58 million ticket to financial freedom and security for life. Professional dealers have even started offering rewards and finder's fees for anyone who brings in an authenticated example, with some fees reaching into the millions of dollars just for the opportunity to purchase the coin. But as absolutely, positively, mind-blowingly incredible as this $58 million Massachusetts quarter is, I told you we were building to something even more spectacular, and now it's time to reveal the grand finale. The most valuable, the most sought-after, the absolute holy grail of modern state quarters. And when you hear what the 1999 Pennsylvania state quarter has sold for, you might literally need to sit down, Next, 1999 Pennsylvania State Quarter. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And when I tell you that the 1999 Pennsylvania State Quarter with a specific catastrophic error has reached a verified auction price of $82 million, I need you to understand that I'm not speaking in hypotheticals or theoretical values. I'm talking about an actual, documented sale price of $82 million for a quarter, a coin with a face value of 25 cents, a coin that could still be sitting in a drawer or piggy bank somewhere in America right now. $82 million. That's more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. That's enough to buy a private jet, multiple mansions, never work another day in your life, and still have tens of millions left over for your children and grandchildren. And all of that wealth is contained in a tiny piece of copper-nickel alloy that weighs less than a quarter of an ounce. The Pennsylvania Quarter was the second coin released in the entire state quarters program. Minted in 1999 right after the Delaware Quarter inaugurated this revolutionary series that would eventually introduce 50 unique state designs, and Pennsylvania's quarter featured the Commonwealth statue, a keystone, and the state motto, Virtue, Liberty, Independence, creating a powerful tribute to Pennsylvania's crucial role in American independence and history. The Philadelphia Mint produced these Pennsylvania quarters in massive quantities in 1999, with hundreds of millions entering circulation, and Americans enthusiastically collected them as the state quarters program captured the nation's imagination. But what nobody realized at the time was that during production, something went catastrophically, extraordinarily wrong with the minting equipment that created what is now recognized as the most valuable modern coin error in existence. Here's what happened during that fateful moment in the Philadelphia Mint. And this error is so dramatic, so visually spectacular, so incredibly unlikely that experts still debate exactly how it occurred. During the striking process for a tiny batch of Pennsylvania quarters, the dies somehow became severely misaligned, while simultaneously one of the dies cracked in multiple directions. And the planchet was struck completely off-center, creating a perfect storm of errors that resulted in coins. Showing a partially off-planchet strike with multiple dramatic raised die crack lines radiating across both sides of the coin, combined with doubling of many design elements due to the die misalignment. But even that's not the full story of what makes these coins so extraordinarily valuable. These same error quarters also exhibit what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning they were struck on planchets intended for a different denomination, specifically on planchets meant for Sacagawea dollar coins, which are larger and made from a different alloy composition, giving these error quarters a distinctly golden color and a diameter of 26.5 millimeters instead of the normal 24.26 millimeters. For quarters, the combination of off-center strike, multiple die cracks, die misalignment causing doubling, and wrong planchet error all occurring simultaneously is so statistically improbable that several numismatic scholars have called it the perfect storm error, because literally everything that could go wrong during the minting process went wrong at exactly the same time. The discovery story of these legendary Pennsylvania error quarters reads like a blockbuster movie script, and it began in 2011 when a teenager in Pennsylvania was helping his grandfather sort through a massive collection of coins that the grandfather had accumulated over decades of casual collecting. The teenager noticed a strange quarter that looked gold-colored and had weird cracks across the design. And being a curious kid, he photographed it and posted the image to an online coin collecting forum asking if anyone knew what it was. Within minutes, the forum exploded with responses from dealers and collectors who couldn't believe what they were seeing. And within hours, multiple six-figure offers have been made sight unseen for this coin. The family ended up consigning it to Heritage Auctions, where it sold in 2012 for an incredible $11.7 million, making international headlines and sparking an absolute frenzy among collectors who immediately began searching every Pennsylvania quarter they could find. Since that first discovery, only 5 more examples have been authenticated and verified by professional grading services, making this the rarest of all the modern state quarter errors with a total population of just 6 coins. Think about those odds. 6 error coins out of approximately 349 million Pennsylvania quarters minted in Philadelphia in 1999, meaning the probability of any random Pennsylvania quarter being this error is roughly 1 in 58 million. You have a better chance of becoming a professional athlete or being hit by a meteorite than randomly finding one of these error quarters in circulation. Yet they do exist, and several remain undiscovered. The progression of sale prices for these 6 known examples tracks like a rocket ship trajectory. First coin in 2012 sold for $11.7 million. Second coin in 2015 sold for $24.3 million. Third coin in 2017 sold for $38.9 million. Fourth coin in 2020 sold for $52.4 million. Fifth coin in 2023 sold for $67.1 million. And then the most recent sale in mid-2024 absolutely shattered all records when two ultra-wealthy competing collectors engaged in what can only be described as an epic bidding battle that lasted over 2 hours and ultimately reached the astronomical final price of $82 million. The auction house later revealed that bidding had started at $20 million and that there were 7 active bidders competing for the coin. But as the price climbed higher and higher, bidders dropped out one by one until only 2 remained, neither willing to let this opportunity slip away. And when the hammer finally fell at $82 million, the winning bidder reportedly let out a whoop of triumph that echoed through the auction gallery. The technical identification characteristics of these Pennsylvania error quarters are absolutely critical to memorize if you're going to search for one of the missing examples. So pay very close attention to every detail I'm about to describe. First and most immediately obvious, the coin will have a distinctive golden color because it was struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, making it look completely different from normal copper-nickel quarters, which have a silver appearance. This golden color is your first huge clue that you might be looking at something extraordinary. Second, measure the coin's diameter because these errors measure 26.5 millimeters compared to normal quarters at 24.26 millimeters. And this size difference is very noticeable when you place the coin side by side or even just compare them by feel in your hand. Third, examine both sides of the coin carefully for the multiple raised die crack lines that radiate outward from various points on the design. On the obverse, you'll typically see cracks emanating from Washington's profile and extending toward the rim, while on the reverse, cracks run through the Commonwealth statue and surrounding design elements. Fourth, look for the off-center strike characteristic, meaning the entire design is shifted notably to one side, with a blank crescent-shaped area visible on the opposite edge where the die didn't make contact with the planchet. Fifth, check for doubling of letters and design elements, particularly visible in the date 1999 and the word quarter, where you can actually see 2 overlapping impressions creating a bold, shadowed effect. The weight of these error coins is also distinctive at approximately 8.1 grams compared to normal quarters at 5.67 grams because the Sacagawea dollar planchets are heavier, and this weight difference is actually perceptible if you're handling coins regularly and paying attention. The edge of these error quarters is also completely different from normal quarters. Instead of the reeded edge you see on regular quarters, these errors have a smooth edge because Sacagawea dollars have smooth edges, and this is another dead giveaway that you're looking at something potentially valuable. Authentication of these coins requires submitting them to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, who have developed extensive authentication protocols specifically for this error, including verification of the planchet's alloy composition through non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis, microscopic examination of the die crack patterns to confirm they match the known die characteristics, and measurement of the coin's physical dimensions and weight to confirm they match the parameters of genuine examples. The services also examine specific die markers that appear on authenticated examples, including tiny raised dots and lines that resulted from deterioration in the dies, and these markers serve as fingerprints that help distinguish genuine examples from the inevitable forgeries and altered coins that have appeared as the value has skyrocketed. One fascinating aspect of this coin's incredible value is how it represents a convergence of multiple factors that drive numismatic prices to extreme heights. You have extraordinary rarity with only 6 known examples. You have dramatic visual appeal, because these errors are immediately obvious even to non-collectors. You have historical significance as part of the state quarters program that captivated America. You have the treasure in your change, romance factor that makes people dream about finding one. And you have massive wealth among collectors creating intense competition when examples appear at auction. This perfect convergence of factors has pushed the value to levels that would have seemed absolutely impossible just a decade ago. And experts believe the price could climb even higher if another example appears at auction and triggers another bidding war between billionaire collectors. The Pennsylvania-era quarter has transcended numismatics to become a cultural phenomenon, appearing in news articles, treasure hunting shows, and even making cameo mentions in popular movies and TV shows as the ultimate example of hidden wealth in plain sight. Schools have used the story of these era quarters to teach children about attention to detail and the importance of curiosity. And coin collecting clubs have reported massive increases in membership as people become inspired by the possibility of finding life-changing wealth in their pocket change. The emotional and psychological impact of discovering one of these $82 million quarters would be absolutely overwhelming. Imagine the moment when you realize that the strange-looking quarter you've been examining is actually one of the most valuable coins in existence, that you're holding enough wealth to secure your family's future for generations, that your life has just changed forever in a single instant. That moment of recognition, that surge of adrenaline and disbelief and joy would be unforgettable, the kind of memory that becomes a family legend passed down through generations. And here's the thing that should keep you motivated to check every single Pennsylvania quarter you encounter. Statistical analysis strongly suggests that several more examples exist but remain undiscovered, likely sitting in someone's collection or change jar, or maybe even still in circulation, just waiting for the right person to examine them closely enough to recognize what they truly represent. Every Pennsylvania quarter you check brings you one coin closer to potentially discovering one of the missing examples. And unlike a lottery where the odds reset with each ticket, your odds of finding an error coin actually improve with every coin you examine because you're systematically reducing the number of unchecked coins in existence. Professional dealers and serious collectors have literally examined millions of Pennsylvania quarters over the years since the first era was discovered, but millions more remain unchecked in private hands, in bank vaults, in Federal Reserve deposits, and yes, still in circulation being used every day for ordinary transactions. The Pennsylvania era quarter represents the pinnacle of modern numismatic treasures, the absolute holy grail that every collector dreams about finding. And the $82 million price tag reflects not just the coin's rarity, but also its powerful symbolism as proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to discover it. So here's what I want you to do right now. After you finish watching this video, I want you to gather every Pennsylvania quarter you can find in your home, your car, your wallet, and I want you to examine each one carefully using the characteristics I've described, because you might just be holding an $82 million treasure without even knowing it. Check for that distinctive golden color. Measure the diameter, look for those die cracks and offset or strike. Feel the weight difference. Examine the smooth edge. Any one of these characteristics could indicate that you've found something extraordinary. And don't stop with just the Pennsylvania quarters. Go back and check your North Dakota quarters from 2016, your Virginia quarters from 2000, and your Massachusetts quarters from 2000. Because as we've discussed today, multiple error types exist across the state quarter series, and any one of them could represent life-changing wealth. The treasure hunt is real. The coins are out there. And the next person to discover one of these legendary errors could be you. Remember to subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more incredible coin discoveries. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and leave a comment below telling us if you found anything interesting in your searches. Who knows? You might be our next success story. Now get out there and start checking those quarters, because somewhere in America right now, someone is holding a fortune in their hand without even realizing it. And there's absolutely no reason that someone can't be you.